Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you happen to be. My name is Paul Marca. I want to welcome you to our Luminarian Fellowship webinar. We host these once a month, and our goal is really to try to build community around the topic of growth, strategy, and innovation. I want to just tell a quick personal story. I had the privilege of being at Stanford for many, many years as Associate Vice Provost, and I met this guy, Kamran Elahian and Pedram Mokrian. Kamran is a four-time IPO CEO and company leader, as well as Pedram, who has been an adjunct faculty member at Stanford University, and they created this business called Innovera. And they asked me to help drive something called the Luminarian Fellowship, along with my colleague Zamir Shuko, who actually is producing this call. And as part of that activity, one of the things we're passionate about trying to do is connect and share the ideas. We have a lot of insights, but we don't have all the answers. And part of the collection of these ideas and generating this community is to seek out experts. And today we have the privilege of hearing from Alex Dang. Dr. Alex Dang is a senior product leader and entrepreneur with 20 years of experience across Amazon, AWS.ai, and McKinsey. At Amazon, he launched a sort of new digital businesses, platform solutions, and led the development of AWS's first AI edge device. At McKinsey, where he spent quite a bit of time, he advised Fortune 500 and CEOs and investors, and in particular around venture building. He began his career in Europe, where he was working on edge computing devices and computer vision before it was popular and before AI was a thing. More recently, with Ilya Strebulayev, a faculty member at the Graduate School of Business, he wrote the book, The Venture Mindset. We're going to be talking about that. It's now a global bestseller. And Alex promised today to share practical insights that leaders of large and small companies can really implement in their day-to-day life, and also key strategies to help think and frame the kinds of things that will be successful now and in the future, again, to help drive more effective decision-making as organizations grow and expand, especially in this age of AI where things are so dynamic. So, Alex, I want to take a moment to say thank you and welcome to the program.
Paul, thank you for having me here. You've set the bar truly high, so hopefully we will be able together to meet the bar. And I have one offer to the audience and to the community, because as a community, it should go two-way, meaning that please send us questions, because I would rather answer your questions throughout the entire talk. And it would be really awesome to get to know each other and to address your specific questions and issues.
Thank you for that. Alex just alluded to an important dimension. So let me frame the overall experience for the next 40 minutes or so. I'm going to ask Alex a bunch of questions. If you have questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. We'll hear from Zamir to learn a little bit more about how Luminarian Fellowship and Innovera might be able to help at about 40 minutes or so. And then the remainder will be an open mic Q&A. If you're brave enough to ask the tough question and remain with us, please do so. If not, feel free to populate it in the chat. I am an introvert, actually, so I appreciate the notion that sometimes it's a little bit difficult to sort of jump on mic and say, hey, what's going on? But if you would like to, we'll have that from about 45 to the top of the hour. In the interest of time, we will be exiting at the top of the hour, so you can get to your next meeting, etc. So that's what we're up to for the next 40 minutes or so. Alex, I want to jump in. You've spent 20 years building things and making a difference in Amazon, the work you did with McKinsey. What sparked your curiosity around innovation and technology?
Well, Paul, that's a great question. So first of all, I think about technology as a leverage. It's an amazing thing to reimagine the customer experience, and I think to have a 10x, 100x impact. You mentioned that I started my career in Europe. I worked for a technology company in the video security industry, and I still remember pretty clearly. Just imagine a safeguard, a security officer sitting in front of monitors, tracking all the activities on the screens. And then you introduce something which is computer vision enabled, which automatically triggers different alarms, which is fully integrated with access controls. This is a 10x, 100x impact. Or I really remember well when in my first week at Amazon, they send you to a warehouse to experience what Amazon actually is. And Amazon is not just about the servers and nice, flashy UI UX. It's about a warehouse. So I was literally a picker, packer for the entire week. And then the week later, I enter a robotic facility. So it was 10 years ago. Now we have almost the same number of robots in Amazon's warehouse as number of employees. I think that's pretty astonishing to experience and to see, and more importantly, to build. And to whoever is on this call, I think if you had to pick the time to build amazing things, it is now, just because we're living through this transformational moment when you can actually build something with a 10x, 100x impact.
We'll get back to that a little bit later, but I want to sort of probe on the book, The Venture Mindset, that you wrote with Ilya Sribilayev. Sort of, what was the biggest surprise in writing that book as you sort of probed both these sort of new ventures as well as established organizations?
Well, first of all, I'm glad that you mentioned the book, The Venture Mindset. You may see that I keep it on my table as well. Well, I have to admit that the idea of a book never came to me before we started to hear from our clients and after workshops. When the CEO says something like, "I wish I had this book given to every single employee in my organization. And I wish we had such a book. I wish we could compress all the content that you shared with us in a book." And I think that what actually sparked the interest and the motivation to write one. You asked about the surprise. What truly surprised me is that it became a global thing and a global movement. So obviously, I was very happy when Penguin Random House decided to publish it in the US. It became an instant national bestseller. That was truly cool. But when we started to receive requests to translate that into Mandarin in China, into Korean, into Japanese, into Kazakh, into Portuguese, I think that's what was the biggest surprise to me, that it is not just about Silicon Valley. It is not just about the unique opportunities here, but it's actually truly global movement. So that what surprised me the most.
So let me probe a little bit and maybe ask a challenge question. You venture mindset, but I'm a program manager in the middle of a large organization. Why do I need to know about venture mindset? Isn't that the domain of the venture capitals in Silicon Valley and Sand Hill Road?
I'm so glad that we asked this question, because we wrote the book about venture capital, but not for venture capital industry. And the reason for that, because when you see the environment around us, it's very uncertain. And you can pick too many topics where we are uncertain about the future, where we do not know what will happen. We do not know what technology may bring us. We do not know whether you, me, and someone else would even have the same job 5, 10 years down the road because of AI. Therefore, I think we have to accept the fact that the environment is very uncertain. And with Ilya, we were curious, who were the best at actually navigating such an uncertain environment when you do not know what will happen in the future, when we do not know what's next. And we realized that that's venture capitalist industry, because they somehow managed to pick out of hundreds of different ideas the ones which are revolutionary. Today, we use Zoom for this specific call. The app did not exist. The technology did not exist 15 years ago. We use Uber to travel around Silicon Valley, where two of us are. Again, the same technology did not exist. So I think what we learned, that VC somehow, they managed to find revolutionary ideas, and these ideas grow to transformational companies. Say today, 7 out of 10 largest companies in terms of capitalization, market cap in the US are, or used to be, VC backed. So that's why we start, at least I was very curious, is there a way to take the playbook of VCs and apply that to regular decision makers? And what I realized, that many principles, processes, mechanisms that VCs use are very well used in technology companies like Amazon and AWS, where I worked at as I was launching new ventures. And I do believe that every program manager who is dealing with uncertainty, will benefit from this playbook.
Yeah, the notion around distilling the lessons learned from venture capital that has been present in the Silicon Valley in particular for so many years, they've learned quite a bit, and it's really great that you've been able to do that. I want to sort of shameless plug to, I see Trina Weller there. We worked at Stanford on a decision-making course with Ron Howard's support, and so certainly the notion around the rigor and research that, in particular, Stanford has conducted, and now you and with Ilya, wonderful distillation of that notion around decision making. So your book outlines sort of 9 principles, and if you had to pick one that you think is perhaps most relevant, or especially as you've gone global, I saw on your LinkedIn you were sort of in various locations doing the European tour. What are you hearing from your audiences relative to of the 9 principles? Which one is standing out the most and most relevant?
Look, Paul, it really depends on the audience because I talked to, say, in Georgia and Tbilisi, I talked to investors, and Copenhagen, I talked more to designers and to corporate leaders. So I think it really depends on who you talk to because different audiences will pick different aspects of that. If you are launching a business, I think you have to read about all 9 principles because you have to understand how the decision about the capital, which you hope to get from the venture capitalists, you have to understand how they make decisions. But I think to me, if I had to pick 2 principles that I wanted to share with your audience, I would not be able to pick one. I would pick 2, Paul. My apologies. The first one will be home runs matter, strikeouts do not. Or to anyone who is not familiar with the baseball terminology, and that's what I learned as I was speaking to global audiences, that it's all about the big wins, about home runs, about jackpots. And to some extent, that's the way that VCs operate. So if you think about the traditional VC portfolio, then out of 20 bets or investments that they will make, and just think about that, 16 of them will be complete failures. And by saying complete failures, it means that you will have to write off the entire amount because there was nothing to sell. It's not the private equity industry. I mean, you can sell an old laptop, and that's pretty much it. 2 to 4 of their bets may generate 2 to 4x return. I don't know about you, Paul, and I don't know about the audience, but I personally, when I hear about a 2 to 4x return, I'm very excited. Treasuries are not delivering that kind of a return to me, but not for VCs, because you may just do some math and you will see that it just doesn't pay off for all the losses. So what VCs are looking for are that home run, that 10x to 100x deal opportunity. And when you start to think about it that way, then you realize that the term risk, which is very familiar to us, very intuitive to us, it actually has a very counterintuitive meaning to VCs because they think that the failure is to miss Google, Amazon, Apple, OpenAI, or anything of that, Anthropic, you pick them, you pick any phenomenal company that comes to your mind. To miss such a company is a big failure. To write off a bad investment is not a failure to them. That's a pretty transformational, I think, way to think about the risk and about ventures. But I would add one more principle. I think we're wired to think differently, and I think it's important to have the principle agree to disagree. So if you are, and I'm pretty sure that many of the participants on this call are already making bets and already happy to hunt for home runs and for jackpots, unicorns. The challenge there is that if you expect everyone in the room to agree on this bet, think of a VC partnership or any corporate setting, then most likely you will fail to find one. And it's a kind of clear why, because if everyone in the room agrees, then most likely this is not an outlier. And it's all about finding an outlier. So that's what is institutionally really hard to implement, is to agree on the principle, agree to disagree, or letting Paul making an investment, or letting Alex making an investment, or trying things. I mean, I can certainly go into other principles as well, but I think we'll stop here and pause here. These are the 2 that I think are the most important ones.
Yeah, so there's one. So Bob Sutton, a Stanford faculty member that I know pretty well, talks about argue as if you're right, listen as if you're wrong, and once the argument's done, go. I think the point that you're making is important in that if everyone is in agreement, it's probably already being done or it's a bad idea. But if there's some disagreement, look for those outlying that where actually the conflict creates opportunity. Now that said, how would you advise, given that you actually want to generate conflict, how are you talking to audiences about managing that conflict?
Well, first of all, the conflict is embedded because if the goal is to align and to reach a consensus, that's just simply a wrong goal for venture building. And I would just highlight again this fact that for a traditional environment where you can and should plan ahead and have a business plan and everything is kind of standardized, then you should just follow the standard playbook that so many MBA programs would teach you about. The problem and the challenge is that the moment when you enter the uncertain environment, when you're thinking of how do we create a new Zoom, how do we come up with a new AWS, is there a way to create a new platform like Salesforce.com? What is the way to reimagine our entire business model with the help of AI? That's when you cannot rely on the consensus. So there are a few mechanisms that we outline in the book, but I personally often use very simple probing with the audience. Like you probe me, I probe my audience and probe my team members at Amazon. It is not the question, would you think about this? But share with me what you do not like about this idea so that you can actually learn from that feedback. But eventually it's your call. I mean, again, you have to make a decision and more power to decision makers and specific leaders, particular leaders to take the lead of an initiative, better you are.
Great. I just want to actually take a quick aside and encourage the audience. If you've got some questions or you're sort of spurring some thoughts or interesting ideas, please put them in the chat. We'll also have an open mic session here at about 45 minutes past the hour. So encourage you to sort of think about those things. And meanwhile, Alex, I just want to sort of, you've talked a lot about sort of opportunities and the way your book frames those opportunities and some both the home run strikeouts. As a former baseball player at Stanford University, I can appreciate the fact that you want to have the big swings because they're the ones that win the games. And then this agree to disagree. So talk personally, are there stories or things in your own experience where you tried something that either defied expectations or completely missed? It was a strikeout, as it were.
Well, I mean, obviously, of course I do, because that's why I believe in this approach. And not just a co-author, I'm glad that you started with more kind of business-focused background that I have, because I launched products and big launches. And obviously, I do believe that failure is a part of that. So I would just even give you a specific example that in my office at Amazon, I decided that I will print and pin to a wall not just successful press releases of products, which I'm really truly proud of, but also I will be proud of my failures. So I actually kept every single press release for both successes and failures. And it was I have to admit, a kind of a reminder every morning when I enter my office. It reminds me, okay, that's part of a story. And if I would not have failures, I would not have successes. You don't swing to the fences. But I also think that that's a reminder to my team members. So some VCs, they even Bessemer Ventures, for instance, they even created a website, a particular page where they outlined companies and they point to all of the companies that they missed to invest in. So it's kind of cool. You read every single story. They actually have a story about Google and Zoom and every company that they missed because they learned from it and they also demonstrate openness to other startups and venture builders that, well, we also make mistakes, but we learn from these mistakes, come to us. I think that's the most powerful way to do so. However, I will also remind or share with the audience that some people, especially outside of Silicon Valley, who never worked at technology companies, I think they perceive venture building almost like gambling, and it is not. So We surveyed a large number of VCs. It's actually one of the largest survey that we conducted, Ilya's team conducted. I personally interviewed many VCs, and one VC even mentioned, we're risk reduction engineers. What a lovely way to frame that, because what they want to do is to take calculated risks. So they want to understand what kind of risks they're taking. Is it a team risk? Is it a business risk? Is it a technology risk? And they actually very open about that in advance. And they mention that in their investment memo. And that does not prevent them from making investment. It's mimicking so well what I experienced at Amazon. And even now with my clients, I ask them to almost write so-called a PR FAQ document. We can talk more about that, where I ask them to outline all the risks so that we're open about the risks, and maybe we can frame the test or an experiment to test and verify whether this risk is actually material or not.
You mentioned the notion, and I want to use the Horizon framework, a McKinsey framework. Sort of Horizon 1 is operating and keeping things going so that the core business is safe. And then Horizons 2 and 3 start to drift into sort of more innovative opportunities. And so how do you, when you're working with organizations, and maybe you have a concrete example, how are you encouraging them to sort of adapt the venture mindset as you think about Horizon 2 and 3? And avoiding the sort of group think that often drags teams that are trying to be innovative, it drags them down. How do you help teams think that address that or combat that notion?
So Paul, you've actually asked two different questions, because the first one is about how would you inspire senior leaders to take a risk and to build something risky, big, bold. And I think it's actually a task by itself, because I spent enough time in boardrooms and talking to management. And I have to admit that writing boring, long documents and PowerPoint decks may not be the most helpful way to actually sell the idea or sell the vision, sell the venture. What is needed, I think, is a more of a visionary document. So at Amazon, we use the technique PR FAQ, where we, as product leaders, had to write a press release of a product like you're reading a New York Times article, but from the future, when the product is already being launched. So think of this 2026, May 2026, Luminarian now is a global fellowship covering tens of thousands of different luminarians, and this is now a big community. So think of that kind of an environment. So that press release is what leadership expect from you. And that's a very structured document. It has a date by which you promise to launch something. You have a quote from the user. So what will be the benefit? You have technical details about the product itself. So what the product is about. You have the name of a leader mentioned there, senior VP or VP, who would actually lead the initiative and sponsor it, and the quote why it benefits the company overall. So it's a very structured document, but it's also a very visionary document because it outlines the future. I also love to build prototypes, and it takes literally half an hour to 1 hour to build a prototype nowadays. You just go to Lovable and you build a landing page or a product, and you show it and you let people experience. You make people and your leaders dream. I think that's so important, to imagine the future and to help leaders to imagine the future. That's what I did. But then the hard part starts, because now you have to actually deploy that. You need a sponsor, and you need funding. And the moment when you go to lead and ask for $100 million funding, you're screwed, to be honest, because it's a huge commitment and you never know whether it would work or not. So my suggestion, and what I recommend to many corporate clients, is just to follow the playbook of double down or quit, or think about your business as an experimentation machine. Launch small, or the way that we used to say at Amazon, start small, scale fast. So when we launched Prime Now, we launched it in a single zip code. When we launched new programs, we typically picked a very small subset of users. I think that finding the way how to run an experiment is such a beautiful way to demonstrate the impact right away. And then you ask for more funding. And then you ask for more funding. Does it remind you, Paul, anything? It reminds you of VC mindset, right? Because that's the way that startups would act. They will ask for seed capital, then Series A, then Series B, then Series C, then SoftBank comes with a Series D, and et cetera, et cetera. So that's the way it's a staged approach where you launch things step by step. And you can see that that's a very structured process. It's not a random, it's not gambling. It's a risk reduction engineering approach. And that's why we outlined it in the book, but it's not just in the book. It's actually many technology companies, including Amazon, and hopefully with my help in other companies as well, they follow this approach.
Yeah, this risk reduction engineering I love, although I must admit that it's probably not the best title. I think you got a better one with regard to the venture mindset, although that seems to be the headline underlying the messages that you're sharing. I just want to sort of push back a little bit. I know in dealing with as a consultant and advisor, many companies are now thinking about artificial intelligence, and the notion around sort of piloting something in AI is sort of difficult. Usually the engine needs a lot of data. You can't just sort of dip your toe into AI because the results may not be good enough. What advice or what are you seeing out there with regard to AI generally? And how what advice would you provide to organizations who are thinking about trying to drive AI as part of their organizations?
Right. And Paul, I mean, AI is such a huge topic that I think we can spend at least a few hours just discussing AI. And hopefully I learned about AI a bit earlier than LinkedIn and the whole madness. Now I sometimes even think of, is there a way to filter all my LinkedIn thread and read about something not AI related? But well, let me step back. So first of all, I do believe that we live in the moment that could be compared to horses being replaced with cars. I even start some of my workshops with that, with a couple of pictures, which will demonstrate the impact. And I think we live in this kind of moment in time, where in the entire industry, not just technology, but many industries will be reimagined with the help of AI. And I'm actually more excited. I do use ChatGPT. I do use Claude to code, but I think that I'm way more excited about how AI can impact other sectors and industries like healthcare, like agriculture and food tech, where with the help of AI now we can understand better the soil structure and use fertilizers in a smart way, or for healthcare to make it way more personalized as an experience. I think it also inspires me that how quickly you can build stuff today, at least at the prototype level, but actually even at production-wise. So you can set up a prototype in like 1 hour. I built one yesterday for a wine recommender for myself. I just started to use ChatGPT. It failed to deliver results which I liked, so I used the Chinese app Manus. I will write more about that in my LinkedIn soon about the experiment, but I was pretty amazed. But this is all about the prototype stage. I think you asked a more specific question about enterprise level, and I think that's where the challenge begins. Because the moment when you go and try something like a query to ChatGPT, draw me a map of Europe, you will see that the quality of the deliverable will be relatively low. You will see mistakes. Or draw me an alphabet, you will see the same outcome. Actually, AI today is still full of flaws and hallucination. And that level of reliability, security, privacy, I think is not there yet. And that's why it's so hard to get from the shiny demo to an actual use case, to actual deployment, to actual value. And while I have only one single playbook that can help you with that, is to build it customer backwards. So address the true need of a user, understand what's actually the pain point, not technology backwards. So it's not about let's start building something with AI. No, it doesn't work this way. You start with a pain point and then you think backwards. And AI can actually unlock so many new things which could be built. Then you will find a few use cases. Then you start to test, and then you start to polish, and then you face the challenge of the data that you've just outlined. I mean, garbage in, garbage out. You need access to clean data. And when my team was building ML models, I think about 80% of their time was spent on cleaning data, clarifying whether that's the right data or not, and trying to figure out what's the way to clean it, rather than just the fancy part of building a model itself.
So related to this topic, Seth in the chat asked a question. I'll see if I can sort of abbreviate it, and Seth, jump in if I get it wrong. So uh, the notion of AI in the enterprise and venture building has dramatically changed in the last sort of 12 months. Test, validate, pilot, sort of the old model and the general concept. But how do enterprises both sort of eat the elephant of AI, try to do something in that space, while also parallel tracking sort of venture building?
I think you don't have to separate venture building from AI. I mean, to be honest, all of the new ventures which are being built and which I'm reviewing as a part of due diligence projects or strategic projects, they're all embed AI into them. They're all AI first, just because of the power of the technology. And the principle is the same. You pilot, you test, you see the feedback, and then you improve. Because you cannot, the largest risk for any technology initiative is not in the technology. That's what at least I learned during my career. It's the lack of a product market fit, meaning that the users just simply may not need what you have just built. And I think that's the main risk. And think of, again, technology will catch up. So think of placing an order for detergent. One day, Amazon came up with the one-click ordering, which, by the way, was patented. Kind of a simple technology, but that improved lives of so many users. Then Amazon decided why not to create a physical button, which is a dash button, so that you can literally place this button and press it when you need detergent. Perfect. That's what they created. Then that dash button also disappeared, and where it was replaced with Alexa, so that you can place an order via voice. You can see that the idea is the same. The pain point is the same. How can I place an order as fast as possible, ideally without even touching tech or my laptop or my phone? So I think with AI, it's very similar. You have to think about the pain point. What is the core pain point or different pain points that you want to solve? And then look and review the possible solutions which are available. That's actually my job, your job as an advisor, because we live here in Silicon Valley. We hear and know about all of these ideas. Stanford students and PhDs are building them in their labs. So that's what you can bring to your clients as, hey, by the way, there is a solution to address this and that. You may not have to build it from scratch. There are so many tools available, but this is your job, is to give tools. But it's the job of a client to truly understand what's the pain point they try to address.
So shifting gears a little bit, we're here in the Silicon Valley, some of us, and sort of we're known for innovation in this region. But you also have some global exposure. Where do you see the sort of next big innovation hub emerging, and why?
Well, I travel a lot. That's totally true. And I still believe that Silicon Valley is unbeatable in terms of the concentration of a few things, which I think make Silicon Valley such a phenomenal hub. And everyone who is not in Silicon Valley, come visit. You would be surprised that it's not just about the buildings or fancy offices. Actually, you will not find none of that, I would argue. But you would find a concentration of talent, expertise, and capital. And by capital, I mean venture capital and risky capital. I think that what makes this concentration, that density of talent, expertise, and capital, that what makes it unique. If you take Boston, then you will find unique experts in healthcare. You will also find healthcare focused and life sciences focused funds. So it's not a surprise to me that you will find unicorns and startups emerging there as well, and talent will flow to Boston to build new companies there. So I think we will see more and more hubs, innovation hubs, all over the world. And by the way, there's so many phenomenal companies. Like I mentioned, that the book is translated to Kazakh language. In Kazakhstan, there is a phenomenal company, Kaspi KZ, which most of us, I would assume, have never heard about, but we mentioned it in the book because it's a phenomenal case study of how a traditional company could be transformed into a super app technology digital platform. And the list goes on and on and on. You can find so many phenomenal companies and other hubs. So these hubs would to be successful, and that's what I talk about to senior leaders in different countries, is that you need this concentration of talent, capital, and expertise. So pick a particular area, a particular vertical, and if you focus on these three things, magic will happen.
So you mentioned you spent a lot of time in Europe. My roots, I'm a first generation American, parents from Europe, and yet Europe has talent, expertise, and capital. Somehow still can't figure it out. Do you have any read on Europe and why it has been as successful as it might have been? There, of course, some examples, some outliers, but certainly nothing like you see here in Silicon Valley.
So, well, I have to admit that we mentioned already the name of a company, Lovable, which is a great tool to build a prototype. Where it's coming from? It's coming from Sweden, from Stockholm. So I do think that, or Spotify, of the same origin. I do believe that we still can find phenomenally innovative companies in any part of the world. Some parts would be easier to build a business, some parts not. So say whoever visited Paris, they have to go to the innovation hub there because they generate new ideas as fast as many other hubs in the world. So I think, I first of all, I don't fully agree that Europe is like way behind. It is for many other reasons, like regulatory barriers, that, like I said, there is a cumulative effect of phenomenal universities here in the US as well, combined with venture capital. So that's why perhaps I'm here in Silicon Valley these days, because it attracted me as a hub. So I think that's point number one, is that yes, to some extent, some regions like Europe might be a bit behind, but we still see phenomenal companies coming from there. More importantly, at Amazon, I learned about new ideas and new technology stacks or ways to reinvent the experience, often not from the US, not from Europe, but say from India, because of a necessity or a different regulation or a different barriers. They had to come up with a different, with an idea. Say local delivery experience was first invented in India, and I just borrowed technology stack from there. Or Japan, which is known for precision, they had scheduled delivery in Tokyo, Kyoto, and other cities because that's the standard bar for them. So I borrowed that and brought it to the United States and to other regions. So I think that's important to remind to ourselves that great companies may happen anywhere, great experience, great ideas may happen and may come from anywhere.
That's great. So I want to maybe shift gears a little bit. Really important to know that there are lots of us thinking about these challenges, and the Luminarian Fellowship and Innovera in particular are trying to build community around these concepts. If you like the kinds of conversations that we've been having, please feel free to sort of, connect with Innovera and with the Luminarian Fellowship. I'm going to ask my colleague Zamir to share a little bit more about what we're doing, why we're excited about the program we'll be running shortly with Stanford University. And then also, I want to queue up the questions. I got a few in the chat that we'll be able to queue up. We'll come back in just a few minutes. Zamir, over to you.
Thank you, Paul. A great discussion, as usual. Alex, amazing insights. I love listening to your examples. I know a lot of what you're saying is actually practical from real world, companies that you work with. Let me share a little bit of what we're doing here with Innovera. First of all, the Luminarian Fellowship is the program, the community that we're building with C-level executives responsible for innovation, growth, and strategy in large enterprises. And we have three major pillars that we are basically basing this on. First of all, there is the learning component. We are bringing the first cohort of luminarians to Stanford this September, September 11 to 13. We have a 3-day immersive summit. We still got few slots left in this cohort. So if you listen to what I say and visit the website and you believe that this is interesting, can benefit you personally and your organization, please reach out. After the Silicon Valley Summit, which is in September, we're going to have some keynotes, some online activities for the community. Basically, this is a support system that we are creating for the executives that are running innovation projects in large enterprises. And those who complete the first year program will receive a certificate from Stanford University. We believe that connecting the right people is one of the key values of this. So when people arrive from around the world, working in different verticals and different industries, and connect them to the thought leaders that network that we build here, it's going to have a massive effect on what they're doing in their companies. Eventually, everything will resolve around the big projects that they're launching in their organizations. So the doing part is also important. And through that, we're going to introduce people to a great tool, a platform that we're building. I'm going to talk about that in a second. And also, of course, we are surrounding these projects with expertise that are needed to make them more successful. Now, you know that a lot of companies around the world spend millions and billions of dollars running innovation projects. But one of the problems is over 80% of them, they do not achieve the stated goals, and it's very hard to predict the outcome and kind of have a direct correlation between how much money you spend on R&D and what kind of a financial success you get. That happens because in every other vertical, there is a discipline, like in sales and business operation, in HR, marketing, etc. There's a set of rules, there's best practices, methodologies, and there's so many tools that support that line of work. But when it comes to innovation, we're not seeing anything. So we actually have created an innovation management platform together with our colleagues at Innovera, and I'll tell you what it consists of. First of all, proven methodologies. We take research from Stanford University, we take best practices from top VCs, top tech companies in Silicon Valley, and those methods work. We know that for sure. There is and the methodology is just like it was explained today. It's a stepped approach. We have different programs which align with different phases, beginning with ideation and basically creating a strategy around innovation, moving all the way to rapid commercialization. Then there is the tools that we use, and I want to show you this one slide. Typically in the large companies, the innovation cycle is this blue line where you get an idea, you form a team around it, they start the research, and it takes about 6 months to get to a point when you need to make some sort of a decision where to build an MVP, partner with a technology company to do something, an experiment, and basically getting a little more funding to do that. Now, with the platform that was created by our amazing team, this process can be dramatically expedited. So you get to the same level, the same depth of analysis in a shorter period of time, saving, up to 5 months. Which then, and I saw a question inside of a chat, which I think this can refer to. Because now you're saving time and you're saving a lot of resources using AI, using expertise, using proven methodologies to quicker deliver the business case to make a decision. You can stack some of these projects and run several of those experiments in parallel. And this is what the platform is allowing to do. And again, the Luminarian Fellows are going to be the very first people, the very first professionals that we will give an early exposure to this tool and show them how it works. So eventually, what the big mission is for the Luminarian Fellowship, for Innovera in general, is to turn innovation management into a full discipline. And of course, it's always better done with a lot of smart people in the room. That is why we're inviting everybody to join the fellowship and become a co-creator, co-author of this discipline with us. With that said, I'm going to pass the mic back to our colleagues for the Q&A session.
So thank you, Zamir. Really excited about the work we're doing at Innovera. I've spent time while I was at Stanford and subsequent to talking with executives and leaders who are struggling with how to maintain growth strategy and innovation in their organization. So we don't have all the answers, but we're making really good progress. And if you could benefit, keep us posted. We now turn to the Q&A portion of the session. I'm going to start with an interesting question that Camilo asked in the chat. He's sort of he's in the company that he works. We've already seen the first results of using AI in product design, and now the entire organization wants to adopt and create new applications. How can I strategically manage this avalanche of requests coming from my AI team? I don't know, Alex, if you have any insights or thoughts on that.
So, Camilo, first of all, congratulations, because that's a great starting point. When you're on demand, I think it just signals that your team is doing something right, and at the same time, there is a hunger and demand from the entire organization. Well, I'm a product guy, meaning that I would think about everything as a roadmap. So you have to prioritize your roadmap and focus on the most impactful use cases, the ones that you will be proud of demonstrating, or the teams will be proud of demonstrating at all hands calls and meetings. I think that's very important to keep that momentum going, to showcase, hey, here's what we delivered. Some of my clients actually build even AI labs, and they bring investors and partners to that AI lab to demonstrate, and that's what's already being built and happening. But that's only part of the answer to your question, because the second part is productize everything. So if you think about the recommendation engine on Amazon, so thinks of customers who buy this also buy that, and other solutions. This is not just the service or a feature on Amazon's website. Now you can see that there's so many recommendation engines that will try to guess what will work better tomorrow and the day after tomorrow, what will work better for Keith and Zamir rather than for Paul and Alex. So they productized the idea of a recommendation engine. More importantly, they even externalized the idea of a recommendation engine, meaning that now you can buy this as a service from AWS personalized. So I think that mindset is that you build everything as a service internally, and then you productize that, and then potentially sell it externally. I think that's the mindset that I, as a product person, would highly recommend you to have. And again, congratulations with AI use cases. I would love to learn more about what worked in AI product design. I tried a few things myself, and I was sometimes overly excited, like, wow, that's unbelievable that it's possible. But in some cases, I was a bit disappointed because of the, again, quality. It's typically 70 to 90% right, while normally in enterprise environment, you would expect 99.9% reliability.
Great, thanks. I see Keith's hand is raised. Keith, if you want to open your mic and ask your question, then we're going to use again. I'll hit Bastian's question in the chat. So Keith,
sure. I thought I would just break the ice with the open mic hours here. And Alex, thanks for your time. I'm looking forward to your book arriving. I work daily with enterprises, largely publicly traded enterprises, and my work focuses on helping organizations think about softwareization, right? And oftentimes it's legacy organizations thinking about top line revenue growth and getting more innovative around software. And of course, that now is in the world of AI. One of the biggest barriers I encounter on a regular basis to the progress of innovation, particularly in publicly traded companies, is legacy financial thinking, right? Unrealistic ROI. I love the AWS way, right, when it comes to product management, but AWS is, of course, a company that gets it. What's been your experience, and what is your advice to, those of us working in publicly traded large enterprises who are guided by, executives who still think in the old world model, right? Bring me a business case. Tell me how much you're going to make me this quarter, this year. How much is it going to take to get to the end of job versus a product-centric, agile, incremental, venture approach. So those two things are at odds in most publicly traded companies. And I'd love to hear, what you've found successful in breaking that thinking.
Keith, I hear you. I would just share a few things that worked in my case when I had to convince senior executives about, hey, I think you may want to try venture building. Because first of all, it's a portfolio approach. And you're absolutely right. When you're focused on the next quarter financial results, for venture building, it just simply does not work. The average time to become a unicorn for a startup without any legacy, it takes 6 to 8 years. So it's just unrealistic to expect from any venture internally, built internally or acquired externally to materialize in profit and P&L impact right away. So having said that, I think pointing leaders that it's a portfolio approach, that you can set aside 70% of your amount of capital and time and attention to business as usual, but you have to set aside something to experiment with. And some experiments could be adjacent. So think of a subscription program on Amazon, which is kind of not new, but also new, but it actually transformed the company because it's a win-win-win for everyone, for users, for Amazon, for sellers. It's an amazing program. So it's not just about AWS, but also set some time and play with the bigger, bolder bets. And by the way, when I use the word bigger, it should not be big from the get-go. It could be treated as an experiment. So maybe one of these experiments will become AWS, or one of these experiments may become a transformational initiative and may transform your 3M company from mining Minnesota and manufacturing company to 3M that we know today, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't think it contradicts. So first, it's set some money and some cash and some attention aside. Number two, which I actually recently used with a few Scandinavian companies, is that which are pretty conservative. It's an insurance. If you are not reimagining the process and the way that you build and deliver value to your users today, someone else may. One of the ways is to simply ask, let's play a post-mortem analysis. What may kill your business, your publicly traded company 5 years or 10 years down the road? What is that? And typically, senior executives will write a few ideas, and then you just simply ask what kind of a company, startups they mentioned will be mentioned. OpenAI will be mentioned. Google, Amazon could be mentioned. Then you simply return them the question: why wouldn't you build something similar? Why wouldn't you try? Why would you experiment? Why wouldn't you at least be aware? And that's where often, at least my engagements start with reviews of the venture landscape in that specific sector. What are the unicorns in your sector? What are the early stage companies? Because the trick is, VCs, if they manage to predict or they made a bet on phenomenal companies like Amazon, Apple, OpenAI, etc., they're doing it right now with new generation of ideas. Maybe we can peek into this set of ideas, that portfolio. And that portfolio could give you so much information and data to let you experiment internally and protect your business. So think about this as an insurance as well.
Yeah, love that. Thank you very much, Keith, for the great question, and Alex, the answer. I can't help but volunteer two additional thoughts. One is the notion of a pre-mortem, which Huggy Rao runs at Stanford's Business School. Flash forward, I asked a group of executives, imagine your company died 5 years from now, write that press release, and then do a press conference announcing that loss. And then that triggers, and then I said, imagine your company's been wildly successful and there are 3 innovations that have driven it. Write that press release. And what that affords is the mindset of a venture capitalist and using that. And then what companies often miss, Keith, are the skill sets around actually how are you carving out time in Horizon 2 and 3 to build that capacity. And that's, again, something that, we Innovera can help with and others as well. I want to get to Bastian's question here because there's been a lot of talk of AI. Does the focus on AI and AI usage kill all other innovations in big tech these days? As you have in your LinkedIn feeds, everything is AI, but what are the thoughts around non-AI innovations these days? Any reactions to that? Alex?
Such a great question, Paul, because and again, as someone who spent some time at AWS.ai and worked in that space and built some machine learning driven solutions, I think, first of all, when we think about AI, we think about just a few companies like 11 Labs or OpenAI or Anthropic or Perplexity. So these are very well known. I think to some extent that game is over. That's what I say to many investors because these companies were created many years ago and now they dominate the space to some extent. You have to scratch beyond the surface. And there are so many still AI companies, but in areas like military or in food tech or in ag tech, which I already mentioned. But even beyond that, I will just give you the number. Only half of the unicorns last year were AI first or AI-driven companies. And that's an important reminder that there is still space for other areas like Liquid Death as a beverage company and Uzum, which is the marketplace platform from Uzbekistan, etc. So you can actually find so many niche players or in the past 18 months, there were food tech companies which are not AI related, and there were like, I think, 5 unicorns in that spectrum. So I think picking a particular sector and diving into that, you will find phenomenal companies and great ideas. Again, that may spark your imagination, your dream, and may help you as leaders to either outline the future or put together a prototype to inspire leaders of the organization.
Great. And let's see, we have arrived at 59. I promised to get you out so you could get to your next meeting or activity. I want to thank Alex Deng for his wonderful insights. If you haven't got the book, you need to get that as a must read. I want to thank also my colleague Zamir Shuko, who pulled this all together. And I want to thank you for your time, attention, your generosity, and your questions. And with that, I want to wish you a good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to my friend Victor, who I see it's nighttime for him. Thanks so much, and we look forward to seeing you next time. We'll probably be back in September and October, so stay tuned. Like Luminarians, like Innovera, and we'll keep you posted on the next speaker. Thanks again.
Thank you.